I kept telling myself she was real. Even when the photos stopped making sense. Even when her voice changed accents. Even when I couldn't remember what her original story was anymore. Because admitting she wasn't real meant admitting I'd spent 2 years talking to a ghost I'd built in my own head. It meant admitting I'd sent $30,000 to someone I'd never actually known. And that's the thing about online relationships. You're not just buying someone else's lie. You're buying your own. You're paying monthly installments on a fantasy you can't afford to lose, because losing it means you're alone again. And I couldn't go back to being alone. Not after Linda left. Not after the kids stopped calling. So I kept sending the money. I kept believing. Because sometimes loneliness costs exactly $1,500 a month. If our stories resonate with you, don't forget to like, comment, and tell us where you're watching from. A man reached out to us through our website. He wouldn't give his full name, just his first. But he wanted others to hear what happened to him. This is Gerald's confession. I was eating microwaved lasagna when the message came through. It was a Thursday night in February, raining like it always does in Portland, and I'd just gotten home from my last day at the insurance office after 32 years. They'd given me a plaque and a cake. Nobody stayed for more than 20 minutes. I sat there scrolling through Facebook, looking at people I used to know doing things I'd never do when her message popped up. "Hello, sir. I hope this message finds you well. My name is Maria, and I saw your comment on the expat group. You seem like a kind person. I read it 3 times before I realized it was real and not some bot." Her profile picture showed a young woman with long dark hair sitting on a beach somewhere tropical, smiling like she meant it. I hadn't gotten a message from a woman in 8 months, not since Linda moved out and took the dog. I clicked on Maria's profile and scrolled through her photos. There weren't many, maybe 15 or 20, but they all showed the same beautiful girl in different locations, around what I assumed was the Philippines. Some showed her in a nursing uniform. Others showed her with an older woman who might have been her mother. I felt something move in my chest, something I hadn't felt since before Linda started sleeping in the guest room. I typed back, my hands shaking slightly. "Hello, Maria. Thank you for reaching out. Yes, I did comment on that group. I'm thinking about visiting the Philippines next year." It was a lie. I had no plans to go anywhere, but I wanted to keep talking to her. She replied within minutes. "That is wonderful, Sir Gerald. The Philippines is very beautiful. I hope you can visit soon. Maybe I can show you around Cebu City where I live." I stared at that message for a long time. Show me around. Like we were already making plans. Like this was already becoming something. I asked her what she did for work, and she told me she was a nursing student, almost finished with her degree, working part-time at a small clinic to help support her family. "My father passed away 5 years ago," she wrote. "Now I am the one who takes care of my mother and my younger brother. It is hard sometimes, but I am grateful to God for giving me strength." I found myself typing back immediately, telling her I was sorry about her father, that I understood what it was like to carry responsibility. I told her about my own kids, about how Sarah was a teacher in Denver, and Tom was working somewhere in Seattle doing something with computers that I didn't fully understand. I didn't tell her that they barely called anymore. I didn't tell her that the last time I'd seen Tom was at Christmas 2 years ago. I wanted her to think I had my life together, that I was someone worth talking to. Over the next few days, we messaged constantly. She'd send me good morning texts with little heart emojis, and I'd reply as soon as I woke up. She asked about my day, about what I ate, about the weather in Portland. I asked about her studies, about her family, about what life was like in Cebu. "It is very different from America," she wrote. "Everything is slower here. People are more simple, but I like it. I think you would like it too, Sir Gerald. You seem like a person who appreciates simple things." I didn't know what gave her that impression, but I liked that she saw me that way. Simple, appreciating. Not the man whose wife left him because he drank too much and forgot her birthday 3 years in a row. Not the father whose kids stopped inviting him to holidays because he always made things uncomfortable. Just Gerald, a kind person who appreciated simple things. Over the next 3 weeks, Maria and I messaged every day. She told me more about her life, about growing up in a small barangay outside Cebu, about moving to the city for school, about the dreams she had of becoming a nurse and maybe working abroad someday. "Many Filipinas go to Middle East or America to work as nurses," she said. during one of our late-night conversations. The money is much better there. I could help my family more. I asked if she'd ever been to America, and she said no, she'd never even left the Philippines. But I dream about it, she added. Maybe one day I will visit. Do you think I would like Portland? I told her I thought she'd hate it, that it rained all the time and people weren't very friendly. But she laughed and said she liked rain. In Philippines we have typhoon season. Very much rain. I am used to it. We started video calling after that first time, though the connection was always terrible. The screen would freeze for long seconds. Her voice would cut in and out, and sometimes the call would drop completely. But I didn't care. I just wanted to see her face, to hear her voice in real time instead of through recorded messages. She always looked tired during our calls, her hair pulled back, no makeup, sitting in what looked like a small bedroom with pale blue walls. Sometimes I could hear her mother calling from another room, asking her something in Tagalog, and Maria would yell back before turning to me with an apologetic smile. Sorry, Sir Gerald. My mother needs help with something. I told her it was fine, that I understood. During one call in early March, she asked me about Linda. You mentioned before that you were divorced. Do you miss her? I didn't know how to answer that. Did I miss Linda? I missed having someone in the house. I missed not eating alone every night. But did I miss her specifically? The woman who'd looked at me with such disappointment for so many years? Sometimes, I said finally. But it's been over for a long time. We just took a while to make it official. Maria nodded like she understood. Love is very difficult, she said softly. My father and mother, they loved each other very much. But they also fought sometimes. I think all couples fight. But the important thing is to forgive. She was so young, I thought. 28 years old, and she was talking about forgiveness, like she'd lived a whole lifetime. But maybe she had. Maybe losing your father at 23 and having to support your whole family made you grow up fast. Do you want to love again? She asked suddenly. The question caught me off guard. I don't know, I said honestly. I'm 58 years old. I think maybe that part of my life is over. She shook her head, her face serious. No, Sir Gerald. You are not too old. You still have many years. You deserve to be happy. Something about the way she said it, so earnest and certain, made my throat tight. When was the last time someone had told me I deserved to be happy? When was the last time I'd believed it myself? It happened on a Sunday morning in March. I was drinking coffee and reading her good morning message when she sent another text right after. Sir Gerald, I am so sorry to bother you with this, but I don't know who else to ask. My mother needs medicine for her heart condition, and I don't get paid until next week. The doctor says she needs it now. I feel so ashamed to ask you this. My stomach tightened. I'd been waiting for this, hadn't I? Some part of me knew it would come eventually. Every conversation I'd ever had with my buddy Dave at the insurance office came back to me. Dave was always warning people about online scams, about women in foreign countries who pretended to like you just to get money. But another part of me, the lonely part, wanted it to be real so badly that I pushed the doubt away. This wasn't some random woman. This was Maria. We'd been talking for weeks. I'd seen her face, heard her voice, learned about her life. I asked her how much she needed. $200, she replied. I am so sorry, Sir Gerald. I know this is a lot of money. I will pay you back as soon as I can. $200 wasn't much. I'd spent more than that on whiskey the month Linda left. And if it was real, if Maria's mother really needed medicine, then what kind of man would I be to say no? I sat there staring at my phone, my coffee getting cold, thinking about all the reasons I shouldn't do this. But then I thought about Maria, about her tired eyes during our video calls, about how she was supporting her whole family at 28 while I couldn't even keep my own marriage together. I sent the money through Western Union that afternoon. The process was easier than I expected. I just walked into a grocery store with a Western Union counter, filled out a form with her name and location, and handed over $200 in cash. They gave me a confirmation number to send to Maria so she could pick up the money. She called me that night and she was crying. Sir Gerald, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. You saved my mother's life. God will bless you for this kindness. Her voice was thick with emotion, breaking on certain words, and I felt that warmth spread through my chest again. This was real. This reaction was real. No one was this good of an actor. You don't have to thank me, I told her. I'm just happy I could help. Your mother is going to be okay." She cried harder at that, and I heard her mother's voice in the background asking what was wrong. Maria said something in Tagalog, and then her mother was on the phone speaking broken English. "Thank you, sir. Thank you for help, my daughter. You are good man. God bless you." I didn't know what to say. This woman I'd never met was thanking me, blessing me, and all I'd done was send $200. It felt too big, like I'd done something more significant than I actually had. But it also felt good. It felt like I mattered. A few days later, Maria sent me photos. One showed her mother sitting up in bed, smiling weakly at the camera. Another showed several medicine bottles with labels in Tagalog, the kind with tiny print I couldn't read, even if they were in English. "This is the medicine you helped us buy," Maria wrote. "My mother is feeling much better already. Thank you again, Sir Gerald. I will never forget this kindness." I saved those photos to my phone and looked at them sometimes when I was alone in my house when the silence got too heavy. Proof, I told myself. Proof that I'd helped someone. Proof that Maria was real. By April, we'd settled into a rhythm that felt almost like a relationship. We talked every day, video called twice a week when the internet cooperated, and she started calling me her special friend. I didn't ask what that meant exactly. I didn't want to ruin it by pushing too hard. She sent me voice messages while she was walking to school, the sound of traffic and people talking in the background, her voice bright and energetic. "Good morning, Sir Gerald. I hope you are having a good day. I am going to my clinical rotation now. I will be working at the hospital all day. Maybe tonight we can video call?" I'd listened to those messages over and over, her accent wrapping around each word, the genuine warmth I heard there, or at least what I believed was genuine. Then one night in late April, she told me her family was struggling. We were on a video call and she looked more tired than usual, her eyes red like she'd been crying. "What's wrong?" I asked. She shook her head. "It's nothing, Sir Gerald. Just family problems. My mother's medical bills are very expensive, and my brother needs money for his school supplies. And my tuition is due next week. I don't know how I will pay for everything." She wasn't asking for money. She was just venting, just needing someone to listen. But I could hear the stress in her voice, see the tiredness in her eyes through the grainy video feed, and I made a decision. "How much is your tuition?" I asked. She looked surprised. "Sir Gerald, no. I am not asking you for money. I just needed to talk to someone. I know you're not asking. I'm offering." "How much?" She hesitated, biting her lip. "It is $1,500 for the semester. But Sir Gerald, this is too much. I cannot ask you for this. You're not asking. I'm telling you. I want to help." I said it firmly, with more confidence than I felt. She started crying again, covering her face with her hands. "Sir Gerald, I don't know what to say. This is too generous. How can I ever repay you? You don't need to repay me. Just finish school. Become a nurse. Help people. That's enough." The words came easily, like I was reading from a script I'd written for myself. The generous older man helping a struggling young woman pursue her dreams. It felt good. It felt right. She wiped her eyes and smiled at me through the screen. "You are the most kind man I have ever met. God sent you to my family like an angel. I will pray for you every day." After we hung up, I sat in my living room feeling that warmth again, that sense of purpose. The next morning, I went to my bank and set up an automatic transfer. $1,500 on the first of every month, sent directly to Maria's account. She'd given me her bank details, and I'd written them down carefully, checking them 3 times before submitting the transfer. $1,500. It was a third of my pension, but I didn't need much. The house was paid off. I rarely went anywhere. I didn't have expensive hobbies or habits anymore, not since I'd cut back on the drinking. This money would go to someone who actually needed it, someone who appreciated me, someone who made me feel alive again. When the first transfer went through on May 1st, Maria called me sobbing. "Sir Gerald, I cannot believe this. You are too good to me. I promise I will work hard. I will make you proud." "I'm already proud of you," I said, and I meant it. 3 months in, I started noticing small things that didn't add up. In July, she posted a photo on Facebook, showing her at a beach resort with friends, all of them dressed up in matching outfits, holding cocktails with little umbrellas. They looked happy, carefree, like they didn't have money problems. When I asked her about it casually the next time we talked, she said, Oh, that photo is from last year before my father died. My friend just posted it now. But I'd seen the date stamp on the photo when I clicked to enlarge it. It said it was taken 2 weeks earlier. I let it go. Maybe I'd read the date wrong. Maybe Facebook messed up the metadata somehow. Then in August, during one of our video calls, I noticed the room behind her looked different. The wall was a different color, more of a cream than the pale blue I'd gotten used to. And I could see a flat-screen TV mounted on the wall that hadn't been there before, a nice one that looked expensive. When I mentioned it, she glanced behind her like she'd forgotten where she was. Oh yes, my cousin is letting me stay at his place for a few weeks while they repair something in my mother's house. Water damage from the rain. Her explanation made sense. It had been typhoon season. But something in her voice sounded rehearsed, like she'd prepared the answer ahead of time. I started paying more attention to the details. Sometimes her accent sounded thicker than usual, especially when she was tired or distracted. Other times, she'd use phrases that seemed too American, like she'd been watching YouTube videos and picked up the slang. "That's so random," she said once, and it struck me as odd. Would a Filipina nursing student say random like that? Once, during a voice message she sent while cooking dinner, I heard a man's voice in the background saying something in Tagalog. The tone sounded casual, familiar. When I asked who it was, she said, "Oh, that's just my brother. He came home early from school today." But I'd never heard her mention her brother being home during the day before. He was supposed to be at school until evening. And the voice sounded older, deeper than I'd expect from a teenager. I didn't confront her about any of this. Instead, I pushed the doubts down and focused on the good parts. The way she still called me every few days, always sounding happy to hear my voice. The way she sent me photos of her meals and asked about mine. The way she made me feel connected to something beyond my empty house. In late August, my son Tom called me out of the blue. We hadn't spoken in months, not since his birthday in March when I'd sent him a card with a check inside. "Hey, Dad," he said, his voice careful. "I wanted to check in. See how you're doing." "I'm fine," I told him. Just the usual. Nothing new. "Sarah said you sounded weird last time she called, like you were distracted or something." "I'm fine," I repeated. "Just busy, I guess." "Busy with what?" "You're retired." I didn't have an answer for that. What was I busy with? Waiting for messages from Maria? Checking my phone every 20 minutes to see if she'd posted something new on Facebook? "Just stuff around the house," I said lamely. We talked for a few more minutes about nothing important, and then he had to go. After we hung up, I felt worse than before he'd called. My own son could tell something was off, but I couldn't explain it to him. How could I tell him I was sending money every month to a woman in the Philippines I'd never met? How could I explain that she made me feel things I hadn't felt in years? In September, Maria messaged me in a panic. It was early morning, around 6, and my phone buzzed with a series of rapid-fire texts. "Sir Gerald, please, I need your help. My mother had an accident. She fell down the stairs and broke her hip. The hospital says she needs surgery, but we have to pay deposit first. They want $3,000 before they will operate. Please, Sir Gerald, I don't know what to do." My heart started racing as I read the messages. I was still in bed, barely awake, and the words took a moment to register. $3,000, her mother, surgery. "Please, Sir Gerald, I am begging you. They say if she doesn't get surgery soon, she might never walk again. I am so scared." A photo came through showing an older woman in a hospital bed, face turned away from the camera, an IV line attached to her arm. The room looked clinical, sterile, with that greenish hospital lighting. Another photo showed what looked like an X-ray, though I couldn't tell what part of the body it was showing. I got up and paced around my bedroom, phone in hand, trying to think. $3,000 was a lot of money. It was what I'd saved up over the past 6 months for a potential trip to Denver to visit Sarah and the grandkids. But this was an emergency. This was Maria's mother. I'd seen her photo before. I'd heard her voice on the phone that one time, thanking me for the medicine. She was real. I sent the $3,000 within an hour. I had to drive to a different Western Union location, one inside a check-cashing place that looked sketchy as hell, because the grocery store had a daily limit of 2,000. The guy behind the bulletproof glass didn't ask questions. He just processed the transaction, took my cash, and handed me a receipt. Maria called me crying, barely able to speak through the sobs. "Thank you, Sir Gerald. Thank you, thank you. You saved her life. I don't know how I can ever repay you. You are a blessing from God. I told her it was okay, that I was glad I could help, that her mother would be fine. But after I hung up, I sat in my car in that parking lot feeling hollow. Something was wrong. I couldn't name it, but it was there, gnawing at the edges of my certainty. I drove home in silence, no radio, just the sound of my own breathing and the engine. When I got home, I opened Facebook and looked through Maria's recent photos again. There was one from just 2 days ago showing her and some friends at a restaurant, everyone smiling at the camera, plates of expensive-looking food on the table. Lechon, I think it was called. Roasted pig, a celebratory dish. If her mother had just broken her hip, if Maria was so stressed about money and medical bills, would she really be out eating expensive food with friends? I told myself maybe the photo was old, maybe she'd posted it late, maybe I was overthinking everything. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being played, that somewhere in all of this, something fundamental wasn't adding up. That night I did something I'd been avoiding for months, something I'd known I should do but had been too afraid to try. I took one of Maria's profile photos, the one where she was smiling on the beach, and I ran it through Google reverse image search. My hands trembled as I dragged the image into the search bar and waited for the results to load. It took maybe 3 seconds, but it felt like an hour. When the results appeared, my stomach dropped. The photo appeared on 3 different websites. One was a Filipino modeling portfolio for someone named Carla Reyes. Another was an Instagram account under the name Carla Art Beauty Girl with over 50,000 followers. The third was a romance scam awareness site, warning people about fake profiles using stolen photos of models. This woman's photos have been used in multiple confirmed romance scams, the warning said. If someone using this photo has contacted you asking for money, you are likely being scammed. Do not send money. Report the profile immediately. I sat staring at my computer screen, the light from the monitor the only thing illuminating my dark living room, and I felt something break inside me. I sat staring at my computer screen until the sun came up, my coffee cold beside me, my whole body numb. The woman in the photos wasn't Maria Santos. She was a model named Carla Reyes, and according to the websites I was reading, her images had been stolen and used by scammers for years. I clicked through dozens of links, reading stories from other men who'd been tricked by profiles using her photos. Some had sent money for medical emergencies. Others had been promised visits that never happened. One man had sent over $50,000 before his family finally intervened and made him stop. I knew it was fake for months, one man wrote on a forum. But I kept sending money anyway because admitting I'd been scammed meant admitting I was alone again. And I couldn't go back to that. I read that line 3 times. I should have called Maria right then and ended it. I should have reported the profile to Facebook, blocked the number, called my bank to stop the automatic transfers, cut my losses and moved on. But I didn't. Instead, I closed the laptop and sat in the dark living room as the sun rose, trying to figure out how to keep believing. Because the alternative was too painful. The alternative meant I'd spent 6 months talking to nobody. It meant the voice messages, the video calls, the late-night conversations about our dreams and fears. All of it had been some kind of performance by a stranger who didn't care about me at all. It meant I'd sent $18,000 to someone who'd been laughing at me the entire time. It meant every moment I'd felt connected. Every time I'd felt that warmth in my chest, every second I'd believed someone actually cared. Whether I woke up in the morning had been manufactured, fake, a transaction. I couldn't face that. So I made a choice that I still can't fully explain. I decided to pretend I didn't know. I kept messaging Maria like nothing had changed. When she sent me updates about her mother's surgery, saying it went well and her mother was recovering, I replied with supportive messages. That's wonderful news. I'm so glad she's okay. When September 1st came around and the automatic transfer went through, another $1,500 disappearing from my account, I didn't cancel it. I just let it happen. When we video called that week, I looked at her pixelated face and wondered who I was really talking to. Was it even the same person every time? Were there multiple people taking turns being Maria? Was the person on the video calls the same person who typed the messages? Did it matter? I studied her face during that call, looking for signs of deception, trying to catch her in something. But she looked the same as always. Tired, a little stressed, but genuinely happy to see me. "How are you, Sir Gerald? You look tired." "I'm fine," I lied. "Just not sleeping well." "You should rest more." "Don't work too hard." I almost laughed. Work? I'd been retired for 7 months. The only work I did was checking my phone every 10 minutes to see if she'd messaged. "I'll try," I said. After that call, I poured myself a drink. Then another. Then another. By midnight, I'd finished half a bottle of bourbon and was sitting on my back porch in the dark, listening to the rain and trying to figure out what I was doing. Who was I punishing by pretending? Her? Myself? What was the endgame here? October and November passed in a blur of increasingly obvious lies. Maria's mother needed another surgery in October. The first surgery didn't fix everything, Maria explained. The doctor says she needs a second operation to repair some damage they found. It will cost another $2,000. I sent it without asking questions. In early November, her brother got sick. He has dengue fever. He needs to stay in the hospital. The bills are so expensive, Sir Gerald. I don't know how we will pay. I sent $1,000. A week later, she had a tuition deadline that required an extra $1,000 beyond the regular monthly payment. I'm so sorry to ask again, Sir Gerald. I know I am being a burden, but if I don't pay by Friday, they will drop me from my classes. I am so close to graduating. Please, I will pay you back everything. I sent it all, watching my savings account drain while I numbly clicked through bank transfer confirmations. Each time she cried. Each time she thanked me. Each time she promised God would bless me. And each time I felt more hollow. My daughter Sarah called in early November and asked if I was okay. "You sound weird, Dad. Are you drinking again?" "No," I lied. "I'm fine. Just adjusting to retirement." "You've been retired for almost a year now. When are you going to come visit? The kids keep asking about Grandpa." "Soon," I said. "Maybe after the holidays." "You said that last year." She was right. I had said that last year, and the year before that. After we hung up, I sat on my back porch in the cold Portland rain and admitted to myself what I'd been avoiding. I knew Maria wasn't real. I'd known since that night in September, when I'd found the stolen photos. But I'd kept sending money because stopping meant accepting that I'd been completely alone this entire time. That every moment of connection I'd felt had been manufactured. That I'd been so desperate for someone to care about me that I'd paid a stranger to pretend. The worst part wasn't the money. $31,500 over 10 months. That's what it came to when I finally did the math. The worst part was knowing that somewhere in the Philippines, or maybe not even in the Philippines at all, maybe in some call center in Manila, or even in another country entirely, someone was reading my messages and calculating exactly what to say to keep me hooked. Someone who'd studied my loneliness like a manual and knew exactly which buttons to press. I thought about all the things I'd told Maria, about Linda leaving, about my drinking, about my kids drifting away, about feeling invisible at my own retirement party, about waking up some mornings and wondering why I bothered. I'd given this stranger my entire emotional interior, and they'd used it against me. They'd weaponized my vulnerability and sold it back to me for $1,500 a month. In late November, I drove out to the Columbia River Gorge, something I hadn't done in years. I parked at a viewpoint and sat there watching the water, thinking about how easy it would be to just keep driving, to disappear somewhere and start over. But start over as what? I was 58 years old, retired, divorced, estranged from my kids, and apparently stupid enough to fall for an online scam that I'd known was a scam for months. What kind of fresh start was possible for someone like me? December 1st arrived, and the automatic transfer went through like it had every month. $1,500 disappeared from my account and traveled somewhere I'd never actually confirmed, to someone whose real name I didn't know. I stared at the confirmation email and felt nothing. That same day, Maria messaged me with exciting news. "Sir Gerald, I have wonderful news. I'm graduating in 3 weeks. December 22nd. I wish you could be here for my ceremony. It would mean everything to have you here. Will you come to Philippines?" She sent a photo of herself in a nursing uniform, holding a diploma, smiling that bright smile I'd seen in so many of her pictures. But I noticed the diploma had no name on it, no school seal, nothing that would make it real. "Just a blank piece of paper in a frame." I replied, "That's wonderful. I'm so proud of you. I'll think about the trip, but I knew I'd never go. That night I opened a bottle of whiskey and did something I should have done months earlier. I created a fake Facebook account under a random name and searched for Maria Santos in Cebu City. I found dozens of profiles with that name, but none of them were her. None of them had the photos I knew, the ones of Carla Reyes that had been stolen. I searched for the nursing school she'd mentioned, the one she claimed to attend, and I found their website. They had a phone number. It was early morning in the Philippines, so I called. A woman answered in English. "Good morning, St. Catherine College of Nursing. How may I help you?" "Yes, hi. I'm calling to verify a student's enrollment. Her name is Maria Santos." There was a pause. "I'm sorry, sir, but we cannot give out information about our students due to privacy policy. I understand. But could you at least confirm if a Maria Santos is currently enrolled?" Another pause. "Sir, we have no student by that name in our current records." "Are you sure?" "She's in her final year." "She's about to graduate." "I am checking our system, sir. We have no Maria Santos." I thanked her and hung up. I wasn't surprised. I think I'd known from the beginning. In some deep part of myself I'd refused to listen to. But knowing for certain still felt like something dying inside my chest. I thought about confronting her, demanding my money back, threatening to report her to the authorities. But what would that accomplish? The person I'd been talking to was probably using a fake name in a country I'd never visit, running this same scam on 5 or 10 other lonely men just like me. I was nothing special, just another Mark, another sad American who couldn't tell the difference between connection and transaction. On December 20th, I logged into my bank account and cancelled the automatic transfer. My hand hovered over the mouse for a long time before I clicked confirm. It felt like cutting off life support to something that was already dead. Maria noticed immediately. She messaged me on December 30th. "Sir Gerald, I noticed the payment didn't come through this month. Is everything okay? Did something happen with the bank?" I didn't reply. She called and I stared at my phone ringing, her name on the screen, and I didn't answer. She sent voice messages, her accent thick with concern. "Sir Gerald, please answer me. Are you sick? Did I do something wrong? I am so worried about you. Please just tell me you are okay." I listened to each one and deleted them. On New Year's Eve, she sent a long message. "Sir Gerald, I understand if you cannot help anymore. I know I have been asking too much. I am grateful for everything you have done for me and my family. You changed our lives. I will never forget your kindness. I hope we can still be friends. Please, even if you cannot send money, at least let me know you are okay. You are very important to me." I read it 3 times. Then I blocked the number. Christmas came and I spent it alone in my house just like I'd spent Thanksgiving. Sarah had invited me to Denver, but I'd made an excuse about not feeling well enough to travel. The truth was I couldn't face her knowing what I'd done. Tom called on Christmas morning, and we talked for 5 minutes about nothing. I told him I was fine. He didn't believe me. Maria sent me a video message on Christmas morning, even though I'd blocked her number. She must have used a different account. "Merry Christmas, Sir Gerald. I hope you are having a wonderful day. I miss talking to you. My mother asks about you. She wants me to thank you again for saving her life." I watched it 3 times, studying her face, trying to figure out what parts of our relationship had been real, if any. Had the person in the videos actually typed the messages, or was that someone else? Were the video calls recorded and played back, or was I talking to someone live? Did it even matter? I'd been paying for a service, and the service had been delivered exactly as promised. Someone had made me feel less alone for a while, and I'd compensated them for their time. That's all it had ever been. On December 27th, I went through my bank statements and added up every transaction. $1,500 on the 1st of each month from May through November, plus the $200 for her mother's medicine in March, plus the $3,000 for the surgery in September, plus the $1,000 here and there for emergencies and tuition. $31,500, almost a year's worth of pension payments, money that should have gone toward fixing the roof that was starting to leak, money that should have gone toward plane tickets to Denver, money that should have been building some kind of future. Instead, it had disappeared into the digital void, payment for a fantasy I'd bought willingly. On New Year's Eve, I sat alone watching the ball drop on television, drinking bourbon straight from the bottle, and I tried to remember what I'd thought would happen. Had I really believed Maria would eventually come to Portland? That we'd build a life together? That a beautiful 28-year-old woman would choose a 58-year-old divorced man with a drinking problem and estranged kids? Maybe. Or maybe I just needed to believe in the possibility. Maybe the fantasy itself had been worth $31,500. Maybe I'd known all along and paid anyway. In January, I sat down with all my bank statements spread across the kitchen table and tried to explain it to myself in different ways. Maybe I'd been paying for therapy, for someone to talk to when I couldn't afford a real therapist. Maybe I'd been paying for hope, for the feeling that someone somewhere cared whether I woke up in the morning. Maybe I'd been paying for the fantasy of starting over, of being someone's hero instead of someone's disappointment. None of these explanations made me feel better. They all just sounded like excuses for being stupid. Sarah called one night in late January. I'd had 3 drinks, maybe 4, and I almost told her everything. But when she answered, sounding happy and busy with her own life, talking about her kids and their school projects and her husband's new promotion, I couldn't bring myself to burden her with my stupidity. Instead, I asked about the kids, about her job teaching 5th grade, about whether they'd gotten much snow in Denver this winter. We talked for 20 minutes about nothing important, and when we hung up, I realized I'd spent the entire call wishing I was talking to Maria instead. Not the real Maria, whoever that was, but the version I'd created in my head, the one who'd actually cared, the one who'd actually been real, the one who'd listened to my stories about work and asked how my day was, and made me feel like my life had some kind of meaning. That's what I was really grieving. Not a person, but a feeling. The feeling of mattering to someone. February marked 1 year since Maria's first message. I thought about sending her something, just to see what would happen, but I didn't. Instead, I started going to a grief counseling group at the community center on Thursday nights. It was held in a room with folding chairs arranged in a circle, bad fluorescent lighting, and a coffee maker that only produced lukewarm brown water. The group was mostly older people like me, widows and widowers dealing with loss. I told the counselor leading the group that I was grieving my marriage, which was true, but not the whole truth. What I was really grieving was the death of someone who'd never been born. The loss of a relationship I'd never actually had. The group leader, a woman named Patricia, talked about how grief isn't always about death. Sometimes we grieve the loss of a future we imagined, she said during one session, a life we built in our heads that never materialized. That grief is just as real as any other kind. I thought about the future I'd imagined with Maria, taking her to Portland, showing her the Columbia River Gorge, watching her face light up when she saw how green everything was, introducing her to Sarah and Tom, having them see that their father wasn't completely pathetic, that someone could still want him around, maybe helping her get a nursing job at one of the hospitals here, building something real from the digital foundation we'd created. None of it had ever been possible, but I'd believed in it so completely that losing it felt the same as losing something real. One of the other men in the group, a guy about my age named Robert, pulled me aside after a session in March. We'd gone out for coffee at a diner down the street, and after some small talk, he leaned in and said quietly, "Can I tell you something? Something I haven't told the group?" I nodded. "I was scammed too," he said, "by someone claiming to be a widow in Russia. I sent her $40,000 over 2 years before my daughter found out and made me stop. Went through my bank statements and everything. Threatened to have me declared incompetent if I didn't cut it off." He stared at his coffee cup. The shame was worse than the financial loss. The feeling that everyone who knew must think I was pathetic, desperate, stupid. I nodded slowly. I didn't tell him I understood exactly what he meant. I didn't tell him about Maria, but something in my face must have given me away because he reached across the table and gripped my shoulder. "It's not your fault," he said. "These people are professionals. They know exactly how to find lonely people and exploit them. You're not stupid, you're just human." I wanted to believe him. But believing him meant forgiving myself, and I wasn't ready to do that yet. In April, more than 3 months after I'd blocked Maria's number, I got a message from an unknown account. It appeared in my Facebook Messenger, from a profile with no photo and a generic name. "Sir Gerald, this is Maria. I hope you are well. I wanted to let you know I graduated, and I am now working at a hospital in Manila. I think about you often and pray for your happiness. If you ever visit the Philippines, please let me know. I would love to meet you finally. You are always in my heart." I stared at the message for a long time, my heart doing something complicated in my chest. Part of me wanted to believe this meant something, that she'd actually cared enough to track me down and share her good news, that maybe some small part of what we'd had was real. But another part of me, the part that had learned something over the past year, knew exactly what this was. A follow-up, a check-in to see if I might be ready to start sending money again. Maybe enough time had passed that I'd forgiven whatever imagined slight had made me stop. Maybe she thought I'd missed her enough to overlook the inconsistencies and the lies. Maybe she was testing whether the well had run dry, or if there was still something left to extract. I typed out a reply 3 different times and deleted it each time. What would I even say? That I knew she'd been scamming me all along? That I'd spent months pretending not to know, because the lie was more comfortable than the truth? That I'd gladly bankrupted myself for someone who didn't exist, because it was better than facing how alone I actually was? None of it mattered. I blocked the new account and went back to scrolling through my news feed, looking at people I used to know living lives I'd never have. But I also saved the message. I screenshotted it before blocking her, and I kept it in a folder on my phone labeled Photos. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted proof that she'd come back, proof that I'd been strong enough to say no. Or maybe I just wanted to remember what it felt like to be wanted, even if the wanting was fake. By summer, I'd stopped checking Facebook entirely. The platform felt poisoned now. Every suggested friend request like a potential trap. Every message from a stranger a possible scam. I'd learned my lesson, but the education had cost more than just money. It had cost me something harder to quantify. The ability to trust my own judgment. The willingness to be vulnerable with another person. The hope that connection might still be possible at my age. Sarah finally got the truth out of me in June when she visited for my birthday. I'd forgotten it was my birthday, until she showed up unannounced at my door with a cake and a card from the grandkids. She'd noticed I'd been dodging her calls, making excuses not to video chat, and she'd gotten worried enough to buy a plane ticket. We sat on my back porch, and she looked around at the overgrown yard. The peeling paint on the deck, the empty bottles in the recycling bin I'd forgotten to take out. "Dad, what's going on?" she asked. "You look terrible, and this place is a mess." "I'm fine," I said automatically. "No, you're not." "You're not fine. You haven't been fine for a year. Talk to me." So I told her everything. About Maria. About the messages and the video calls and how real it had all felt. About the money. $31,000 over 10 months. And how I'd known for months it was a scam but kept sending the payments anyway because I couldn't stand to let it go. She didn't yell at me like I'd expected. Instead, she cried, which was somehow worse. Big, silent tears rolling down her face while she sat there holding my hand. "Why didn't you come to me?" she asked finally. "Why didn't you tell me you were this lonely?" "Because I'm your father. I'm supposed to be the one taking care of you, not the other way around." She shook her head. "That's not how it works, Dad. Family takes care of each other." That's it. That's the whole thing. She made me promise to see a therapist, not just the grief group. She made me promise to be more careful online. She made me promise to visit Denver more often, to stay connected to the family I actually had, instead of inventing new ones in foreign countries. I promised all of it and I meant it, but I also knew something she didn't. The damage was already done. I'd spent a year building a relationship with a ghost, and that ghost had taken up residence in my head. I still thought about Maria every day, still wondered who she really was, still caught myself composing messages to her in my mind. The addiction wasn't to the person, it was to the feeling. And that feeling didn't just disappear because I'd cancelled the payments. It's been 18 months since I sent that last payment. I'm still in Portland, still alone, still trying to figure out what comes next. The therapist I've been seeing, a woman named Dr. Chen who specializes in what she calls complicated grief, asks me what I learned from the experience with Maria. I never quite know how to answer. I learned that loneliness makes you stupid. That desperation has a price tag of exactly $1,500 per month, that the human brain will believe whatever it needs to believe to avoid pain, even when the evidence is overwhelming, that I'd rather be scammed than be alone. But I also learned something else, something I didn't expect. I learned that the connection I felt, fake as it was, showed me what I'd been missing. what I'd let slip away with Linda and the kids. The feeling of mattering to someone, of being needed, of having a reason to check my phone in the morning. Maria might not have been real, but my need for her was. And that need doesn't just disappear because I finally accepted the truth. I still wake up some mornings and instinctively check my messages, expecting to see her name there. I still have moments where I almost click on her old profile, just to see if it's still active, if she's moved on to someone else, or if Facebook finally shut it down. I still catch myself composing messages to her in my head, telling her about my day, about something funny I saw at the grocery store, about the way the light hits the river on clear mornings when the fog hasn't burned off yet. Sometimes I wonder who she really was. If she was actually a he, some guy in a call center in Manila or Cebu running 10 conversations at once, copy-pasting the same caring messages to different lonely men. If there was ever a real woman behind any of it, or if every piece was fabricated. If the person in the video calls was the same person who typed the messages. If she ever thought about me at all beyond the monthly deposits, beyond the transaction. If she felt anything when the money stopped coming, or if I was just another account that went dry, another Mark that figured it out or ran out of funds. I'll never know. And maybe that's the real lesson, that we're all just sending money into the void, hoping it buys us something real. Sometimes it's to a scammer in the Philippines. Sometimes it's to a therapist who nods sympathetically and takes insurance payments. Sometimes it's to an empty house we're afraid to leave. But we're all paying for connection one way or another. I just happened to pay $31,500 for mine. And the worst part is, if I'm being completely honest, if Maria messaged me tomorrow, I'm not sure I wouldn't answer, because the lie was still better than this, than nothing. The silence, the mornings where nobody's waiting, the nights where nobody asks how my day was, the feeling that I could disappear and it would take weeks for anyone to notice. Maybe that makes me pathetic. Maybe that makes me exactly the kind of fool who deserves what happened. But it also makes me human, and that's the one thing I know for certain is real. I visited Denver in August, stayed with Sarah and her family for a week, played with the grandkids, helped fix a leaky faucet, had dinner with Tom who drove down from Seattle. It was nice. It was good to be around people who actually knew me, who shared my history, who cared about me without wanting anything in return except for me to be present. But I also noticed how eager they were for me to leave by day 6, how the house felt crowded with me there, how their routines were disrupted by my presence. I wasn't part of their daily lives. I was a visitor, a guest, someone who showed up occasionally and then left. On the plane ride home, I thought about Maria, about how she'd made me feel like I was part of something, even if that something was fake, about how the illusion of being needed is sometimes enough. Dr. Chen says I'm making progress, that I'm being more honest with myself, that I'm building healthier connections with my actual family, that I'm learning to sit with loneliness instead of trying to fix it with the first person who shows me attention. She's probably right. But she doesn't know that I still have Maria's photos saved on my phone, that I still look at them sometimes late at night when the house feels too quiet, that I still read through our old messages, the ones I didn't delete, trying to find clues I missed, trying to figure out which parts were real and which parts were performance. I know what she'd say if I told her. That I need to delete everything, that I'm holding on to something that's keeping me from moving forward, that I'm choosing to stay stuck. And maybe I am, but those messages are the only proof I have that someone, even a stranger being paid to do it, once made me feel like I mattered. And I'm not ready to let that go yet. Maybe I never will be. Maybe this is just who I am now. The man who sent $31,000 to the Philippines for a girl who didn't exist. The man who knew he was being scammed and paid anyway. The man who would rather buy a lie than face the truth. I can live with that, I have to. Because the alternative, the truth that Dr. Chen wants me to accept, is that I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. That no one is coming to save me from my empty house and my empty days. That I have to save myself, and I don't know if I'm strong enough to do that. So I keep Maria's photos on my phone. I keep her messages. I keep the fantasy alive in small private ways that hurt no one but me. It's pathetic, maybe. But it's mine, and sometimes when the loneliness gets so heavy I can barely breathe, I look at those photos, and I remember what it felt like to believe someone cared. Even if she didn't, even if she never did. At least for a while I felt something other than this.